All right. Thank you for coming, everyone, to this talk about shipping software. My name is Johansen, and I'm a software developer at the Norwegian Food Safety Authority. And for about the past 10 or 15 years, I've been practicing continuous delivery, which happens to be the topic of this talk. So the goal of this talk is to show you some techniques you can use in your work as software developers to help you achieve continuous delivery. So I want to focus on the nitty-gritty details of our everyday work. How can you achieve this process? Very basically, I'm going to make you watch me work for a while, and hopefully you'll learn something from it. But before we get to the practicalities, we have to agree on some definitions, because these terms are thrown around a lot and mean a lot of different things to different people. And if you add the abbreviations as well, it gets even more confusing. Some of these abbreviations even mean different things. So CD, does that mean continuous delivery or continuous deployment? Are those different? Who knows? Depends on who you're talking to. So I'll just define these terms for the purpose of this talk, and then we can argue about the meanings later. So we'll start with continuous delivery. It's just 2 words, and the delivery part is about software delivery, putting working software into our users' hands, shipping to production, really. And when does this happen? It happens continuously. How often is that? It's all the time. According to the dictionary, it's uninterrupted in time. So very basically, the goal of this process is that for every change we make to the software, it gets continuously and immediately delivered. That's the whole point. So if you're going to be doing this, you're going to want to have a few systems in place. So if deployment is going to happen, delivery is going to happen continuously, you probably do not want to manually construct the production artifact. So you're going to want an automated build process of some sort. And if you have an automated build, you don't want to involve humans in testing your software. So you need some automated tests, and you need enough of them so that you can trust your system to be delivered when they pass, very basically. And then finally, if you automatically update your production environment, you need observability. You need to know what's going on in production. So all of these things are required to participate in continuous delivery, but doing them does not give you continuous delivery in itself. Because the final part is that you have to adapt the way you work with software. And that's really what the point of this talk is. So that moves us on to continuous integration, this other term. Now, this word has a lot of meanings in our industry. But in this context, it means a very specific thing. So imagine that your team is the perfect size, 3 developers. And each of those developers have a local copy of the code on their machine. The integration we're talking about here is simply combining those changes in the upstream Git repo. That's all there is to it. So people tell you that they can sell you continuous integration. They can't sell you this. This is a work process, not a product you can buy. So again, this is supposed to happen continuously. So ideally, everyone's commits would be continuously merged with the other developers' commits. And this is the process part of continuous delivery. And this is what we're going to be looking at. How can we write code that makes this possible? So we have this ideal model of software development. Sorry, I should mention this. Another term for this process is trunk-based development. So trunk is a really outdated term. It really means main-based development, meaning that all the development happens on the main branch. So trunk is what we used to call the main branch in the old days. Right. So here's the ideal process from start to finish. You have some developers, and everyone is working on the main branch on their local computer, and then they push to the main branch on the central Git repository. And in order to do that, they're going to have to pull down the changes from their teammates, and then this happens continuously frequently, many times throughout the day. And then whenever someone pushes to main, it triggers some automated process that delivers the software. Now, in most cases, deliver the software means update the production environment. But that's not really a requirement. It could be that you have business reasons for not shipping every change all the time. But at the very least, the goal of this process is to not make it a technical limitation. So you should work as if every commit went to production. And then in most cases, you probably also want to do that. So you might ask, why would I want to work in this way? Well, first of all, I'd say that the goal for us as software developers isn't really to write code, but it's to ship software somehow, or solve problems, or whatever you want to call it, but ship software, right? And this process promises to do that with the least amount of ceremony and the fewest amount of hurdles possible. So that, to me as a developer, is intrinsically motivating. But you don't have to be motivated by that, because this is unique in our industry in that it's actually backed by research. There's lots of good research into this process that says that teams that work in this way have better software delivery performance. They create higher quality software, make fewer mistakes, and even have happier developers. Measured how, you may ask? Well, they don't burn out as often, and they are more happy with their jobs, so they don't quit as often. That's probably a good thing. And it's even shown that in organizations that have IT teams working in this way, the entire culture of their organization is improved. So I'm not going to spend any more time convincing you that this is a good idea, but you can go to this website to read about the research. It's pretty substantial. And then we're going to focus on how to do this from now. Let me ask you a question. How many people in this room work like this right now? That's, yeah, pretty good. Some hands. So there's a common deviation from this process that I will now try to describe, which looks like this. You have your developers again. Now they're working on feature branches on their local machines, each working on their feature. Then they push these to the upstream Git repository in separate branches, so the changes are not continually integrated. And then at the end of some piece of work, the developer will create a pull request and invite their teammates to review that code. And eventually, those changes will be merged into the main branch and are now available for the other developers to pull down. And then maybe you have an automated testing and build pipeline after the fact. But like I said, the existence of this pipeline does not make this into continuous delivery. This is more of a batched delivery model. So how many people work in this way today? That's quite a few more hands, which is expected, because this has become essentially the industry norm, even though research says that this is the best way to work. Now, if you're working in this way today, you probably don't think that this looks like a good idea. And there's an understandable reason for that, because when you're in this kind of setup, the kinds of commit you make and the way you approach problem solving is different from how you work in this way. So they're both using Git and they're both making commits, but they are working in a very different way. So you have to change your mindset in order to achieve this and to reap the benefits that the research tells us that we should be able to get. So how do we do this? So I'm going to do some work on stage and show you how I do it to make it possible. And the work I'll be doing will be on a simple project so as not to have to establish too much context. So what you see on screen now is my team's blog. It's not a very exciting application, but it has a list of articles, and you can click and read them. And now our product owner has ordered a new feature. So instead of this boring list of articles, they now want exciting list of articles with pictures and with tags. So this is a whole new feature, and it requires new data, new UI elements, new logic, lots of things. I probably will not be able to finish it in one go. So can I do this on the main branch? Well, let's try. So in order to do this on the main branch, I'm going to have to try to identify some ways of solving this problem that don't break production. For instance, if I just drop in this UI components with the links before I make the tag page, which looks like this, by the way, then my users will get a broken site where some of the links just don't do anything. That doesn't sound good, so I don't want that to happen. So we have to scope it down a little bit. But what I do notice is that this new design has a new design element in many places, and I can start by just creating the design element. That's not going to do any harm, and that can go on the main branch. So I'm going to jump into code now, and fair warning, maybe not all of you use the same programming languages as I do, but that shouldn't be a big problem, because the focus now is not on the syntax or the specifics of the code. It's on how we approach the problems and the granularity that we're solving these problems. So I want to create this UI component. Now, luckily, I have a setup that looks like this, where I can preview all the UI components that my site is made up of. So if any of you use Storybook, you know what this is. It's basically the same thing. Now, obviously, this is very simple because it's a very simple site. It doesn't have that interesting of an UI. But I have somewhere where I can work with UI components in isolation. So let's create a new one that's going to look like the thing I ringed out here. And for those of you who worked with HTML in the old days, I'm going to call this the vCard component. Right, so let's put this to the side and then move into some code. So, all right, I can see it. Def scene, that's how I define an example. And then we're going to do the vCard component. This function doesn't exist yet. I'm going to create it soon. And it's going to take some text of some sort. So I'll just say title, Homer J. Simpson. And then I'm going to go create this function. We'll create it here. vCard, and it takes title. And then it just puts the title in an H1. Right. So now, if I do everything correct, it should pop up on the side here. Here are my vCard scenes. So here's the default. OK. So on the right side now, I have a live preview of whatever I'm doing. So I can keep developing this. I want some more data. So remember, we want the image and the name and some text. Now, this UI component, I would like to be able to use for anything that has a round image and some text. So I don't want to name these things exactly as what they're used as here. So we're not going to call it author, we'll just call it title. And similarly, we'll just call it image, which could be this image, like of Homer. And then we'll have a body at the bottom that says disgruntled worker. Just as an example. Now, nothing happens because my function doesn't render these things. So we'll do image, body, div, vCard, image, and then source, image, and another div. Got to have those divs, man. And then, yeah, something like this. So if we do like this. OK, so that image is probably a little bit too big. So let's go ahead and set a size for it. Width 92, I think, is fine. There we go. So it's starting to look like something. Actually, I have a class I can put on this one, h5. And now I can go ahead and find my CSS file. And I'll say that the vCard should have a display flex. That should put it, yes, perfect. And a round image, please. Border radius 50%. And nothing is happening. OK, round image, fine. OK, and then finally some spacing, right. Okay, like I said, the specifics is not that important, but now I have something that is looking like the UI element I wanted. So let me create another example. So we'll say vcard no body. If there's no body, and we'll do another character here. Crusty, here we go. So, okay, now I have 2 examples. So I'm not too happy with this alignment here. So actually, let's go into the CSS and do align items center. Come on. Yes, okay. Pretty good. One more example before we quit this. I want to have something that looks like the thing we're going to use eventually. And that is to have a body with links. So instead of this, we'll just do a span, and this says about, and then some link. Don't care where it points, and it says clowns and TV. Okay, cool. This is exactly what I need for later. So what I did now is just to create a new standalone UI component. It's not used by my code in any way, so I can safely now commit this on main and push it to the other developers on my team. That's not going to make any change for the production code, but it is going to allow my teammates to get access to this code. Maybe they can use it, or at least they can merge it with their code to avoid any potential merge conflicts. So this is great. Add new UI component for vcard. Terrible. OK, cool. That was one commit. What's the next thing I can do? Well, I'm actually now noticing that I don't have the tags yet, so getting this put on the page is a bit far cry from where I'm now. But if you take a look at what the blog looks like currently, if we go here, it looks kind of drab. So I'm guessing that just plopping that element with the picture of the author would be a good improvement, even if it's not the exact design we want to end up with. So what I can do is to scope that feature down and solve that and put that in production. That will give me some of the value of the new feature before it's all done. So in order to do that, we're going to change one more UI element. So we have the teasers. They look like this. So now I'm going to say that the teaser can have a vcard aside, or whatever you want to call it. So we'll go in here, create a new example. Let's say with aside. Remove that one, and then we see aside, and here's the data. And then it should render on the side here. Here we go. But it's not rendering the thing yet because I haven't rendered it, obviously. So I'll go into this function. There we go, aside, and then we'll go all the way down here. When I get an aside, I will add an aside, teaser aside, and then we'll call the vcard function with the data that was passed in. Writing and talking, it's difficult. OK, so this is essentially the look that I'm going for. But now, this is a complete work in itself, right? So let me just commit that. So it's not a lot of code, but it is a commit. So making these tiny commits makes the commit history very pleasant to read and easier for my colleagues to review and check out. So add support for vcards on teasers. That's something. I can push this on main as well. Next up, I'm going to go into where my blog page is being made now and make sure we actually use this new component. So if we go here, let's see where my teasers are. Here's my teaser. So all I have to do now is to add aside and then say title, which should be the name of the author, which is here, and an image, which should be the author photo. And boom. Yeah, I have authors. This is not the entire feature that was specified, but it's some of it, and it has some value. But now my name is over here and over here, so let's get rid of that. I have to go into my dictionary. Like I said, the specifics of the syntax, not all that important. That's why I'm doing this quickly. But hopefully you can tell that I'm working in really small increments all the time. And that's not just because this is such a trivial site. You can always work in this way, no matter how complex the application itself is. So this is great. Another commit. Onwards to tags. So display author in vcard on teasers. OK. To get any further with this feature, I'm going to need to have some tags on these posts. And let's find a post. This is, OK, so it says queues in practice, locale. There are no tags here. Actually, there's no way to add tags here because the data model doesn't support it yet. So I'm going to have to do that. But that seems like an important design decision, how we do that. So probably I should create a branch, make a suggestion, create a pull request, and have a teammate review it, right? But then I'd have to make the entire thing first and then ask if it's a good idea. My colleague's probably not going to tell me the truth. So if only I could discuss this with someone up front. If like I had a teammate, oh, there's one right there. Would you like to join me, sir? So it turns out that the guy is pictured here was sitting right there. It's pretty lucky for me. So let's do some pair programming to get some tags on here. Okay. So what do you think? How do we store tags on these posts?
You're putting me on the spot right now. Well, we do like a keyword.
Yeah.
So blog post tags, I guess.
OK. And then what goes in there? Like the tag name? Then I'd have to type it the right way every time. So use a keyword, right?
Yeah.
Like this?
I agree. We can use keywords.
Yeah.
The thing that I wonder about is, can you use any keyword?
I don't know. Maybe we need to define the tags some central place first? That will be very cumbersome to use.
It will be cumbersome, but we get a few advantages because we can validate that you have used tags that are known to exist, and well, maybe it's not worth it.
Probably not worth it for a blog, right? But if we only allow them inline like this, then we would need some way to turn them into a nice name, because as you can see in the design sketch, it says closure with a big C and NAT with all capital letters.
That's a very clever example. Yes. But how do we then, we could type out the keywords just like that.
Just like that, yeah? But then...
It's allowed. It's not...
What happens if I do this? Is that OK?
That's a problem. Those are different, right?
Yeah, those are different, yeah.
So, but we could sort of just create a lookup for the weirdly spelled ones. Yeah,
just treat the special ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it. So we'll store it like this. So let me just open the... Here's my schema, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I'll just go down here, blah, 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 blog post, blog post, blog post, and we'll...
DSA.
Yeah, OK. Blog post tags, many...
Keyword.
Yes. OK, perfect. And then maybe we can just add a function then that takes this keyword and creates the name.
Yes, I agree.
You want to have a go?
So where are the tests?
That test doesn't exist. We're going to have to create a new namespace for the tags.
I see.
Probably, yes.
Let's see. So we have the source here. And let's make a tag.
Yeah.
Tags. Cool. Here's the test. I'll write the test then.
OK,
so it's
perfect.
Get tag.
Name or something?
Tag name?
Yeah.
Yeah, OK.
So you'll notice that by not creating a pull request, I can get my colleague to do the work for me. That's very clever.
Pretty clever.
Yeah.
So tag name, closure, and I expect that to be closure.
Yes, perfect.
OK.
That seems reasonable.
Let's put an error exception on the page here. Yeah.
Boom.
No such thing.
No such thing. OK. So that's my job then. I'll just use this trick to create it, and I'll say tag ID. And name, tag, that's probably not enough. Do stir, capitalize.
Yeah.
Okay. Tests are green. I'll add another test. What about this one?
So,
Tests are failing, sir. Please fix.
so now you can see that they're failing because it's expected nats and it's really a nats with a lowercase ats.
Yeah. Right.
So this is interesting because do we want to hard code tags here? It would be the simplest.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
In that case,
I mean, if it gets untenable, we could just fix it later.
So it's basically just this then.
That's not going to work.
Oh, oops. That's a function. Oh, but we can extract it, and we can do special tag names. Okay?
Ah, perfect.
I will do something. Oh, I already had that. Something like this.
Perfect.
Are you happy?
I'm pretty happy. Actually, I think this is good enough for now. So I'll just commit this, and yeah.
I'll go back then.
Thanks.
Thank
Okay, so small applause to the gentleman helping me out. Okay, so I'll create 2 commits for this. The first one is just to add the ability to have tags. Ability to store tags. That's not going to hurt my production environment. It's just an added attribute. And the next one will be the function that formats the tag. So format tag names for display, which is also safe to do on main. Now, this one I'm going to take away. But now, by setting aside a few minutes to pair program with my teammate, we have readily reviewed code. So we didn't have to go the loop with the pull request. Very good. Next, I'm going to cheat a little bit and find a commit here that actually adds tags to all the posts. So you can see that this post here goes through all the posts and put tags on them. So that's going to allow me to do another small win. Once again, take a look at this. We wanted to say about and then the tags, and the tags should be clickable so we can go to the tag page. Creating the tag page is obviously the biggest job here. But now I have tags in the data model, which means I can at least display them. I don't have to link them because they'll lead up to nowhere, but I can display them. So let's do that. So I will then go in here, once again in the teaser, and then my blog post has tags. And I will add the body to the aside that we created before. Now, this is going to look weird because it needs to look up things from my I18N dictionary, since the site is both in Norwegian and English. But I'll look up the tags, pass in tags, and then map tag, get tag. What did it call that function? Nothing. Tags, get tag name. OK, tags. So, and then we're going to go into the dictionary and add this key. Tags. Span, about, and then I'm going to use a strange construct, which is called enumerate the tags. This will just display the tags with the comma in between and before the last one. And we'll add a Norwegian version as well. But it's like this. Goody, goody, goody. Now, boom. Let's do this. And now I can display tags. This is also useful to my users, so I can commit this and push it out. So hopefully you're catching on now, but very small increments all the time. Display tags on teasers. Cool. 7 commits already. In a talk. That's the first time for me, I think. OK. So from this point, there's not a lot more I can do on this page. I'm going to have to start working on the tag page now. And that's a bigger piece of work. And I'm not going to bore you by taking you through all those steps. But I want to show you one more trick. Because let's imagine that I had already prepared this page. And you're not going to believe it, but Come on. If we go here, I can en closure, and then boom. Okay, so here's the page. I made it. But the tags are still not linked. Now, as long as those tags are not linked, there's no way to reach this page. So you could have developed that piecemeal also on the main branch and not have to worry because no one would find it. But now it's done, and I'm ready to connect it to the rest of the world. And this is where a technique, so Kent Beck has named this technique keystoning. It stems from when you build like stone arches or like an igloo or anything that kind of curves like this. When you place the final stone, that stabilizes the entire structure. That's effectively what I'm now ready to do, because this archway, if you will, is ready, and I will place the keystone by linking up the tags. So let's find, here it says prepare tags. Cool, so here I'm just returning the tag name. So I'll just wrap that in an A, href, and then hopefully there's a router here. I can do get tag URL, and it expects to get a locale, so we're going to have to pass it that. Page, okay. Page locale. I get a locale up here, locale, and then tag ID from the tag. And there we go. So now the feature is complete, right? So you'll notice that this final commit, which is the one that really has the big effect on production, is very tiny. It's just a small keystone. It just adds the link. So I'll commit that, and we'll say keystone the tag page into being. I wouldn't usually use such a pompous commit message, but it's just for fun right now. Right. So that's a useful technique. This works very well when you've developed a feature more or less in isolation, and you just need to hook it in one or a few places. Sometimes features are more spidery and connect in multiple places. Then you might need to use other tricks. So you could put a configuration setting in your app and make it only be available in development and not in production. That's a more hefty version of this technique. Or you could use any number of feature flags. And feature flags is really just a fancy word for an if in your code that checks some condition. People can sell you really, really sophisticated feature flag solutions. You're probably never going to need them. You could check just the existence of a query parameter, a username, or some data on the user, whatever. Remember, a feature flag is literally just an if for some condition that you can make up on the spot. So, okay, so all these examples so far have been about adding stuff to our code. It's very, I'm putting lots of stuff on the page that you can read, which is not a good strategy, but anyway. Okay, so all these are about adding stuff to our code base. But sometimes we do other things with our code base. We change it. We refactor it. How can I do that on main? Well, I actually just did, because when I was preparing this talk, I found out that our blog mostly just all lived in one namespace. And I didn't really want to show you that, but you can see that there are some formatting functions. Here are the blog post stuff. Here's the layout. Here's the front page. So all this stuff was just in one place. And I figured I want to split this out into different namespaces so it looks nice for the audience at NDC. So how would we go about doing that on main? Well, I'd say that a goal would be to get these functions put in like a blog post namespace. But these functions are calling this one and this one, so let's start here. So once again, work in really small increments, and we'll just grab this function here and the locale that it uses, cut it out, and create a new namespace. And I'll grab these imports. And now I can do another cool thing. Because my code is running, so I can evaluate it to make sure that this runs and compiles and works. And it does. And I'll change the name to format date here. And then we'll go back to the namespace where I took the function, find the call, and update it to use the new one. There we go. And then we'll clean up, and boom. I've moved one function. This is a complete piece of work because my tests are running and the thing is still working. Better stop now before I crash the entire thing and it no longer compiles, right? Because it's bound to happen. So I'll just commit this, extract, format, date, emd to new i18n name space. OK. And then I could continue. I could grab this function and move that and commit that. The good thing about this is if I end up in a situation where things are just completely broken, I can undo like 4 or 5 lines at a time and figure out where I went wrong. It's much easier to solve than if you were to blow up this entire namespace in one go and then try to figure out why it doesn't work anymore. So actually, let me see. I want to push this commit, so I'll just check. Oh, God damn it. So who's been working? Sorry. I knew it. So Magnus has been working here, and he's also been changing the same namespace that I changed. That's no good. So, OK, he's made some changes here. Fine. OK. Let's try to apply his commit. Ha! OK. So now I have a merge conflict because it turns out that Magnus has just changed the function that I also changed. But this is a relatively small merge conflict. And I can see that I made the change from here to here, and he has made some other changes. What would this have looked like if I had moved this function to a new file? I would have been shit out of luck. That's what would have happened. So by working in small increments, even when you get conflicts, they're easier to resolve. I'll show you one more example of this point. We'll just leave this. No one wants to watch merge conflicts. OK, here's another one. So I've started to internationalize the site. So it used to be just in Norwegian. Now it's in Norwegian and English. And part of that is to extract the texts from the code into an i18n dictionary. And that's what's going on here. So the front page, we've taken the texts out of the front page, blah, 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 and stuck them all in the dictionary. Here's my dictionary. OK, so that seems benign. Let's try to push this one then. Again? All right. So Magnus has been working again. And obviously, he has also been putting some stuff in the dictionary. And that doesn't bode well for me. Let's see what he did. This is another page he's been working on. And here are the texts. So let's try to apply this commit then. Another merge conflict! Damn it. OK. Why? Well, as you can see, or maybe not, it's impossible to read diff, so I'll just explain it to you. But we both added stuff to the end of the file. And it's the simplest thing to do, right? When you're coding and you want to add something, and it doesn't really relate tightly to anything else, we just put it at the end of the file. And because everyone does this, you frequently run into merge conflicts like this because everyone changed the end of the file. Could we have done this another way? Why, yes, I think so. So check this out. I'm going to abort this and have a new look at the dictionary here. Hello. OK, so this dictionary really just has, these are the layout texts and these are the front page texts. What if instead of just always adding to the bottom of the file, I would structure this file alphabetically? So front page comes before layout. This would also make it easier for me to find stuff in this file when it grows. So I'll just edit it alphabetically, and we'll try again. I just amend my commit. And now I'll try to merge the upstream changes. I don't believe it. Let's see. This was not supposed to happen. What's going on? Yeah. Yeah. I'm missing a space somehow. I told you I can't read diffs. I don't understand what this means. Okay, we'll have to abort this and try again. Aha, there we go. Pretend that didn't happen. Okay, now it applies cleanly, because these things were alphabetically spread out. And this might seem a little bit fringe at first, but it's actually really useful in a lot of places. So take a look at this. I have, obviously I can no longer type. Here we go. So you typically have stuff like this, right? Dependencies. They can be ordered alphabetically. Here I have a bunch of cases. They could be ordered alphabetically. Many times you can put functions in the namespace in alphabetical order, but sometimes you may have to move things around because of dependency order and stuff like that. But when you can, consider not always just tucking new stuff at the bottom, because that's going to lead to merge conflicts. So I find this to be a really useful small tip. And with that, you will no longer have to watch me work. We're roughly done with that section. So I want to sum up like the two most important things that I hope you took away from this little process. Of course, other than that, Clojure is an excellent language. So the first one is the work in smaller batches. Like always, keep narrowing in your focus and find the tiniest bits of work you can do. And like I said, this site is simple. Don't think that I could make it simple because the site was simple. This process always works. You can always break things down. And the other thing is what I like to call keeping the lights on. Make sure that the code compiles and runs, and that your tests are at least able to run. If these things are not true, if your code stops compiling, how will you know whether what you're doing is for the better or for the worse? If I broke 3 tests and then I changed the code, it stopped compiling, I changed it some more, will it get better? Who knows? So that should be a priority to fix. And I'm not saying like I'm not perfect. My code stops compiling, not all the time, but occasionally. But then when that happens, that's the first priority. Get things back up running so you can use the runtime to get information about whether your work is getting you to a better place or to a worse place. And these two things together help you increase flow. And this is not just something that I say. Like people knew this in the 80s. So I very warmly recommend this book, The Goal. It's from 84 or something. It's written by a physicist, and it's about a factory. It's a novel. It doesn't sound all that exciting, but it's really interesting. And it really is about the same process of breaking things down into smaller batches and then see the flow and throughput of your system increase. And this book inspired another book that some of you may have heard of, which is called The Phoenix Project, which tells the same story set to an IT company and was written like 35 years later. But both of these books are really excellent and really hammer in the same point that I tried to show with my little working session right now. Yes, okay. One thing I did not discuss, or I just mentioned briefly, is what if you are doing stuff that cannot be on the main branch? Like you're going to make a huge upgrade to your framework that will break all the files in your project. Or you're going to redesign your site or some other huge change. Well, my first approach to that problem would be to don't have that problem. And that may sound like a joke, but it is actually not. So I stopped using frameworks with breaking changes many years ago, and I still have a job. So it's possible, but I mean, if you can't do that, well, then you're going to have to apply the smaller batches mindset to this problem as well, and try to break it into manageable chunks. But obviously, maybe you'll need to set aside some time for discovery first. Like just investigate what do I need to do, then compile a list of stuff to do, so that the doing doesn't spread out over too much time. But with that said, if most people in your team work on the main branch at all times, it's okay to have the occasional feature branch for bigger changes. Because now your team is not, they're not all working in big changes on branches. So if everyone's like continuously integrating their changes, it's okay to have one big project at a time that you do on a branch. You just don't want to have too many of them, because that's when the problems start cropping up. And as for redesigns, they can be handled on main as well. You could create a new theme, keystone the theme in. You know, some redesigns are just basically a new version of a page. Build a new page, and then just switch it over when it's done. So, a lot of the times you can really break things down into smaller chunks. Yes, let's just a quick summary of what we learned, or hopefully learn. So first, it's the process ideals of working in small batches, keeping the lights on, like I said, continuous reviews. So I didn't mention this explicitly, but when I pulled down the commits, after I yelled at Magnar for disturbing my workflow, I also looked at his commit. If I saw something there I didn't agree with, I could just walk down and talk to him. And then we'll have like an impromptu small review. And when all the changes are like 5 lines, that's pretty easy to do. And the changes that aren't 5 lines, they will typically be developed during a pair programming session or a mob programming session or whatever. Work together instead of first making a sketch and then asking everyone else, do you think this thing I spent 40 hours on is a good idea? They're going to say, yeah. They're never going to say, hell no. And then we did a bunch of things. We added a new UI component that's completely safe to do on main. We added to the schema and to the data model. We added new data. We added new functions. We added new feature islands. All of these things are completely safe. Additive changes are typically backwards compatible and safe to do on the main branch. And then finally, we saw several examples of scoping down and shipping early. Use keystoning to attach features, and then I didn't show this, just told you, but you can use configuration and feature flags if you need to run broader experiments than I did. But typically, in my case at least for the past 10 to 15 years, keystoning has solved 95 of my problems. 95%. I have okay. All right. Anyway, that's the talk. If you want to discuss or whatever, I'll be around here, or you can find me on the conference floor. Don't hesitate chatting. So, thank you.